Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Jack Abbott will definitely want Victor Newman to pay once this whole abduction nightmare is over. Jack certainly doesn't like being used as leverage, nor does he appreciate the fact that Patty Williams has been unleashed on their lives again. Patty is a pest who'll prove difficult to get rid of now that she's back in the picture. Of course, Jack will also want Victor to go down for his drugging drama and the pain of Diane Jenkins Abbott finding him in bed with Patty. Victor is wreaking havoc on Jack's marriage and will deserve to pay for that too. Since Jack will inevitably go after Victor for revenge, let's consider the possibility that he'll join forces with someone. An alliance could form if Jack can find a secret partner to work with. So who might land on his team? Victor isn't a fan of Patty, but that doesn't matter since she was useful to his twisted plan. Likewise, Jack doesn't necessarily have to like the person he might team up with, as long as they're both willing to plot Victor's downfall. This could be a prime Y&R comeback opportunity for Tucker McCall, so we should mull over what a Jack and Tucker partnership might look like. Jack has plenty of issues with Tucker due to past Abbott feuding as well as his failed romantic attempts with Ashley Abbott. Even so, Jack might be willing to put those issues aside and opt for an the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. Victor partnered with Audra Charles to steal Glissade away from Tucker, who's surely been wanting revenge on the Newman patriarch for a while now. It was mentioned that Tucker did some time in a prison in India during all the Aristotle Dumas mayhem, but he may be a free man by now. That could be good news for Jack if Tucker's willing to become his ally. The door could be wide open for vengeful Tucker to join forces with vengeful Jack. Maybe Tucker could even convince Jack to help him try to score an Ashley reunion as part of the deal. Regardless, the Young and the Restless spoilers say Jack's wrath will be fierce, so stay tuned to see if someone like Tucker might get in on the payback action. In the quiet aftermath of chaos, when the dust of betrayal finally begins to settle, a storm of reckoning is already building inside Jack Abbott. The nightmare of his abduction may eventually come to an end, but the emotional scars left behind will not fade so easily. Jack has never been the kind of man who tolerates being used as a pawn, and the humiliation of becoming leverage in Victor Newman's twisted game cuts deeper than most people realize. For a man who has spent his life fighting to protect his family name, the idea that someone manipulated him like a bargaining chip burns like fire beneath his calm exterior. Yet the insult does not stop there, because Victor's ruthless scheme has done something far worse than merely threaten Jack's pride. It has reopened old wounds, unleashing chaos back into their lives through the return of Patty Williams, a woman whose obsession and instability have haunted Jack for years. And now that Patty has been dragged back into the picture, the nightmare threatens to spiral into something far more dangerous. Patty Williams has always been unpredictable, a force of emotional chaos that refuses to fade quietly into the past. Her return is not just inconvenient, it is explosive. Jack knows better than anyone how relentless Patty can be when she believes she has some kind of emotional claim on him, and that knowledge alone makes this situation even more unsettling. Removing her from their lives will not be simple, because Patty rarely lets go once she has sunk her claws into a story. The mere fact that Victor unleashed her again proves just how far he was willing to go to orchestrate this cruel plot. To Victor, Patty was simply a tool, another piece on the chessboard in a game he fully expected to control. But for Jack, Patty represents something far more personal, an echo of past trauma that refuses to stay buried. And as this unsettling chapter unfolds, Jack's frustration continues to grow into something colder and far more dangerous. The emotional fallout becomes even more painful when Jack thinks about Diane Jenkins Abbott, the woman he fought so hard to rebuild a life with. Victor's manipulation went beyond psychological warfare. It crossed a deeply personal line. The shocking moment Diane found Jack in bed with Patty was no accident. It was a carefully staged humiliation designed to tear their marriage apart. In Victor's mind, it was likely another calculated move in his endless power games. But to Jack and Diane, the damage is deeply real. Trust, once shaken, becomes fragile, and Victor's interference has placed a heavy strain on the bond Jack and Diane struggled so hard to rebuild. The thought that Victor orchestrated this moment with such cold precision fills Jack with a quiet but powerful fury. This is no longer just about revenge for an abduction or humiliation. Now, it is about protecting the life Jack fought to reclaim and the love he refuses to lose. As the emotional shock begins to give way to determination, a darker idea begins forming in Jack's mind. Victor Newman has always been a master strategist, a man who rarely loses because he plans every move several steps ahead. But even the most powerful players have weaknesses, and Jack knows that taking Victor down will require more than anger, it will require strategy. The road to revenge may not be one Jack walks alone. If Victor believes he has cornered every enemy and neutralized every threat, then perhaps it is time to prove him wrong. The thought of forming an alliance begins to linger in Jack's mind, a possibility he may have once dismissed but can no longer ignore. Sometimes the most effective weapon against a powerful enemy is another enemy who shares the same target. And in this dangerous world of corporate power and personal vendettas, that kind of partnership could shift the balance of power in ways Victor never anticipated. Victor, of course, has never been fond of Patty Williams, but that hardly matters in the grand scheme of his schemes. For Victor, people are useful as long as they serve a purpose, and Patty served hers perfectly in his elaborate trap. Jack understands this ruthless mindset all too well, which is why the idea of working with someone he doesn't particularly like suddenly becomes easier to accept. Alliances built on friendship are rare in this world, but alliances built on mutual revenge can be incredibly powerful. If Jack is going to challenge Victor Newman and strike back with real impact, he may need someone who understands Victor's world just as well as he does. Someone with ambition, intelligence, and perhaps their own score to settle with the Newman patriarch. And when Jack begins to think about who might fit that role, one name rises from the shadows of unfinished business: Tucker McCall. The very mention of Tucker's name carries years of complicated history. Jack has never trusted him completely, and their relationship has been tangled in layers of rivalry, family feuds, and unresolved resentment. Tucker's complicated past with the Abbott family, especially his romantic entanglements with Ashley Abbott, has always placed him at odds with Jack. Their clashes have been personal, bitter, and often explosive. Yet the world has a strange way of reshaping old rivalries when a greater enemy enters the picture. Sometimes survival and revenge demand alliances that once seemed impossible. And Jack may soon realize that Tucker McCall could be the exact kind of partner needed to challenge Victor Newman on equal footing. Tucker, after all, has his own reasons to despise Victor. Not long ago, Victor teamed up with Audra Charles to pull off a devastating corporate betrayal that cost Tucker control of Glissade, a move that shook his empire and humiliated him publicly. For a man like Tucker McCall, someone driven by ambition and pride, that kind of defeat does not simply fade into memory. It festers, it waits, it grows into a desire for vengeance that refuses to disappear. The Newman patriarch may believe that chapter of the story has already ended, but men like Tucker rarely accept defeat without eventually striking back. And if Tucker has been quietly waiting for the right opportunity to settle the score, Jack's growing fury might provide exactly the opening he needs. Recent whispers suggest Tucker's life took an unexpected turn during the chaotic events surrounding the mysterious Aristotle Dumas drama. At some point during that wild chapter, Tucker reportedly spent time behind bars in a prison in India. For a man accustomed to wealth, power, and control, that kind of downfall must have been both humiliating and transformative. But if Tucker has finally regained his freedom, then the world of Genoa City may soon feel the ripple effects of his return. A man who has tasted both power and prison often comes back sharper, colder, and far more dangerous than before. And if Tucker McCall is now walking free again, there is every reason to believe he might be ready to reclaim everything he lost, including his pride. For Jack Abbott, that possibility could open the door to a bold and dangerous new alliance. Two men fueled by revenge. Two powerful figures who both understand the ruthless world Victor Newman dominates. The phrase, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," may never have felt more relevant. If Jack and Tucker were to combine their resources, their influence, and their shared determination, Victor might finally face a threat he cannot easily crush. Their partnership would not be built on trust or friendship, but on a simple, burning goal: making Victor Newman pay for every betrayal he has orchestrated. And sometimes that kind of focused vengeance can be more powerful than any long-standing alliance. Of course, Tucker is not a man who does anything without expecting something in return. If he were to join forces with Jack, there would undoubtedly be terms attached to such a dangerous partnership. One possible demand might involve Ashley Abbott, the woman whose complicated history with Tucker still lingers unresolved. Tucker has never fully let go of his feelings for Ashley, and part of him may still dream of rekindling that relationship despite everything that has happened between them. In Tucker's mind, helping Jack take down Victor might open the door to rebuilding bridges with Ashley, or at least creating circumstances where their paths cross again in a meaningful way. For Jack, that kind of request would be uncomfortable, perhaps even infuriating. Yet if it brings Victor Newman closer to facing consequences, Jack may find himself willing to consider compromises he once rejected. As this tension-filled story begins to unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear: Jack Abbott's wrath will not fade quietly. Victor Newman has crossed too many lines, inflicted too much damage, and played one game too many with the lives of the people Jack loves. The quiet businessman who once tried to rise above Victor's manipulations is now transforming into something far more relentless. Revenge, when fueled by betrayal and heartbreak, can become a powerful force, and Jack Abbott is reaching the point where he may no longer care how far he has to go to settle the score. And somewhere out there, possibly waiting in the shadows of Genoa City, Tucker McCall may be watching the situation unfold with a calculating smile. If fate brings these two powerful enemies of Victor together, the balance of power could shift in ways no one expected. A storm of revenge may be forming, one capable of shaking even Victor Newman's seemingly untouchable empire. The only question now is whether Jack Abbott will take that final step and accept the help of a man he once considered an adversary, because if he does, Victor may soon discover that the enemies he thought he defeated are far from finished. As the shock waves from Victor Newman's ruthless scheme continue to ripple through Genoa City, the emotional storm inside Jack Abbott refuses to calm. The abduction may eventually fade into the past as another chapter in the city's long history of betrayals and power struggles, but for Jack, the damage cuts far deeper than a temporary ordeal. Victor did not merely attack his freedom, he attacked his dignity, his marriage, and the fragile peace Jack worked so hard to rebuild with Diane. The humiliation of being drugged, manipulated, and placed into a staged scandal with Patty Williams lingers like a dark cloud over everything Jack values. For a man who prides himself on control and honor, the realization that Victor orchestrated such a cruel spectacle is almost unbearable. Each memory of that moment only fuels the fire growing inside him, transforming wounded pride into cold, calculated determination. And with every passing hour, Jack's mind begins shifting away from shock and towards something far more dangerous: retaliation. Diane Jenkins Abbott can feel that shift as well, even if Jack tries to hide it behind his calm exterior. Their marriage has already weathered storms that would have destroyed most couples, and this latest betrayal threatens to reopen scars neither of them ever truly escaped. The image of Jack in bed with Patty was a nightmare Diane never expected to face again, even knowing it was part of Victor's manipulation. Emotions